So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Resilience Summit Part 2. Today we are talking about boosting immunity. And we're not talking about boosting immunity just for our physical immunity, but we're also talking about our mental immunity and our emotional immunity. If you took a look at the page, the resilience page that we had for you to sign up for the summit, you saw that Rebecca, Danny, and I did videos and Anne-Marie, I'm sorry, Rebecca, Danny, and Anne-Marie and I did videos, and our videos were just a little snack that highlight what we're going to talk about today. So I'll just start by just kind of going around and letting you know the lens or the perspective that we're looking at immunity through. Danny is going to talk to us about leadership as medicine. And you might be thinking, what does that mean? Well, hold your horses. We're going to get into that. And Marie is going to talk about organization for nutrition and as a part of overall wellness. And Rebecca is going to talk about mind, body, and spirit immunity. And I am going to talk about, from a career perspective, how purpose can have a play and have a lot to do with our immunity or boosting our immunity. So we're giving you 4 different perspectives on boosting and building our immunity, but it all comes down to this notion of flourishing and thriving, of being a well-rounded and whole individual. As positive psychology practitioners, we study different areas of life and getting people to go from good to great in an effort of not just being great in one area, but being great as a whole, being able to bring awareness around our holistic experience as humans. So I want to just start us out with going around and talking a bit about how our small pieces fits into the larger piece. So Rebecca, if you could start us out and just talk to us about mind, body, and spirit and how that fits into holistic well-being.
Sure. Well, you are more than activities, exercise, but also what we eat. Uh, are we each giving our little snippet?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I lost you off for a second. Yes, so Rebecca, I'm glad everyone else got to hear your snippet, but I just missed it. But yeah, I will move on right now to Anne Marie. If you finished wrapping up your answer on that, I'll have to get the
Yes,
details later on it. But we talk all the time.
no problem.
Anne Marie, can you give us just your bit on how organization fits into or overall well-being and wellness?
Sure, yes. It's interesting because I think from a general standpoint, people don't usually associate with organization with wellness. And Marie and I have always believed that it is essential to good wellness because it supports your different goals. So what I'd like to talk about today later on is going to be how organizing can support the different goals you have in terms of health and nutrition and making it as easy as possible to reduce stress in your life, which obviously has a big impact on immunity and wellness. We all have a lot of stress in our lives. And when you are organized, it's not that you don't encounter stress. It's not like you're immune to emergencies and things like that, but you have more resilience tools in your toolbox and you can kind of bounce back faster and quicker. And so that's what I'll be covering today. Oh, Amber, you're muted.
Amber, you're still muted.
Sorry about that, guys. And Danny, if you could talk to us about leadership in medicine and well-being and even a bit on that stress piece that you did in your video. That was really fantastic. I'm not sure if you guys all saw it, but Danny explained stress and how it affects our body in such a great way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to have that overview, which I can just recap again. So essentially, your body has 2 responses, 2 like big categorical responses. Your nervous system. You You have a parasympathetic and a sympathetic mode. So one is your fight and flight, if you've ever heard about the fight, flight, freeze kind of response. And the other one is like the rest and repair response. And when it comes to immunity, it becomes a healing, you need to be in that rest and repair response. When you're very stressed out for whatever reason, whether it's from other people, whether it's because you haven't been sleeping well, so from all perspectives, your body isn't able to protect itself. So when you are exposed to the virus, you're more likely to have a weak immune system if you haven't been taking care of all these things, if you're not in that mode, especially when you have a chronic stress going on. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about in terms of leadership. But chronic stress can happen in many different ways. It can happen through health, it can happen through sleep, it can happen through your space, being disorganized, your career, all the different ways, and get you into a constant state of that fight and flight mode, even though you're not actually running from a tiger or any true impending doom. Your body treats the environment as if you're constantly fighting it, and that's not the ideal state for building immunity. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. And it actually gives us a very good introduction into what we're talking about. I think it was just so important for you to explain stress and highlight stress, because stress and how we manage our stress plays such a big part on our immunity, right? And so that's where a lot of
Right.
our messages tie into boosting immunity. So we are talking about boosting immunity, but we're also talking about decreasing stress and increasing some of the other things, which Rebecca will touch on when she talks, that we can also do within our routines. And Anne-Marie also, well, we'll all talk about other things that we can do within our routine that help to decrease our stress, to boost our immunity, to bring us to a more mindful and peaceful and harmonious state, even while we're on quarantine. So if you are able to build these skills now, with all of what's going on, then imagine what life could be like after. You've got practice time. We got another couple weeks of this. So we're giving you things that are during quarantine, but they go far beyond the quarantine. So with that said, Danny, let's get started with you. And you spoke about leadership as medicine. And I find that very intriguing, especially as someone who is a leader within my space, within my home, within my business. So can you tell us a bit more about what that means? What is leadership? What does leadership mean during COVID?
Leadership is not just for people in positions of power in an organization. When we talk about leaders, you think about like somebody in a suit and, or a pantsuit or something leadery. But leadership can mean being a leader in any kind of relationship. So I want to expand that view, first of all. Since we're in a time of great uncertainty right now, nobody has the answers. Nobody was alive during the World War I era, 1918 pandemic. Maybe we've had other kinds of crisis, so we have some idea, but there's a great deal of uncertainty. Things are changing rapidly. So when it comes to leadership, it's so important to understand that there are no right answers. It's just the mindset that is going to help us get through these strange times. And leaders can embody that mindset and set an example for other people. If you take examples from history during, great crisis, when I was in college, I was a wilderness guide, actually. So it was like a lot of leadership training. And one of the books that we read was about Ernest Shackleton, who in 1914, he was leading an expedition to Antarctica. And they got stuck in the ice, and they had to wait out the entire winter, his whole crew, in the ice in Antarctica. This is before they didn't have like electric heaters or anything. And he set an amazing example. So he was managing himself in a way that allowed everybody else to understand what they have to do for themselves. He managed to get everybody out of that situation alive, which is just incredible at that time in those conditions. So leadership is about leading from the front in a time of crisis, leading from the front, as in setting an example about self-management as a leader, as about it's setting a tone for what it's going to look like, and the mentality of I'll handle it or we will handle it as a community. That phrase is extremely important at this time, and it's kind of a logo or a tagline for what resilience is. It's this idea of I'll handle it or we will handle it. Things are going to change rapidly. We don't have the answers, and we're going to have to go with the flow. We're going to have to pivot. Things are going to change all the time, and we're going to fail often. But that's okay, because whatever comes our way, we can absorb the impact, we can process it, we can be aware of what's going on, and we can handle it. I could say a lot more about that, but did you have a specific question?
Yeah, well, and that actually leads into the next question of, so I love that you point out the leadership that we have that's not just in an organizational setting, but that can be in our homes as well. And so during this time that people are going through quarantine and trying to boost their immunity and trying to lower their stress, what can we do as leaders in our households or within our personal circles to help our friends and our family and loved ones out?
It's essentially the same thing. I mean, there's a kind of misconception that as the leader, you like the old school version is kind of this authoritarian figure, and research from Daniel Goleman and a lot of emotional intelligence leadership type of people have basically phased out this idea of authoritarian leadership. In a time of crisis, it's important to be strong, and if there is something that needs to be done decisively, you don't falter, and you don't say, well, I don't have the answer, so let's let anybody decide. So there has to be some kind of leadership in a true crisis emergency type of we need a decision now moment. But this is elongated. This isn't, there are moments of somebody needs to step up and do something, but in a kind of elongated period, I think that emotional intelligence-based leadership and a kind of democratic and coaching mentality is much more effective. That applies to organizations, and that applies at home too. You have to check in with people and then be aware of how they are doing, and not make assumptions about what you're experiencing is what somebody else is experiencing. People have their own triggers, and the only way to really know what somebody's experiencing is by checking in with them, is by finding out, by asking questions, by asking learning questions and not judging questions. And also you have to take care of yourself. And I'm really glad that all of you guys are going to talk about ways in which we can do that, because that self-care aspect is going to allow you to have the space to check in with somebody else. A lot of that has to do with your physical well-being, your health, your space, making sure you're sleeping, and all of these things that you're going to address. And if you are setting that example for your household, you're making it easier for everybody else to do it. We're very habitual creatures. We fall into patterns. And since we're in a new situation, it's very easy to go into old patterns. So the second that we can start setting that example of, hey, this is how it has to be now for us to thrive, you set that kind of new normal for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you actually also just touched on a bit of the next question that I had for you. And you mentioned in your video that as the leader, that people are leaning on you, people are turning to you. And so if you could just expand a bit more on that self-care portion, how do you as a leader give yourself what you need, pour into your own cup so that you can be there for the people who are leaning on you?
It's so important. I mean, if you aren't taking care of yourself, if you're overworking yourself to the point of burnout, and I think that's happening a lot in certain industries, especially with the essential workers, people in healthcare, they're being worked to the bone. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then how can you lead? You're depleted. I can give you a direct example of what happened to me yesterday when I was talking to all of you. I was very depleted from a long day, and I was kind of I had a low level of patience. So in our conversation, my reaction was a lot like snappier and kind of like less tolerant than I would have liked it to be. So in a moment like that, what I could have done, just to give an example, is that I could have taken some time before our meeting to reset, or to say, I'm going to need this much time to just take a break and breathe and kind of recognize where I'm at. Because I wasn't able to be a good example, aka a leader in that situation, because I hadn't taken care of myself. That means exercise, that means eating well, that means sleeping well, and I think Rebecca's going to talk quite a bit about that, and you guys are going to touch on that, so I won't go too much into it. But that self-care, self-compassion component it's more important now than ever.
Yeah, and you're really highlighting something that's also very important with leadership, and that's that area of self-awareness. And so even just as the great leader that you are, you recognize, I'm doing that, or I didn't show up the way I wanted to, and then you correct it and you forgive yourself for it. It's the do you guys know the whole Ho'oponopono? I love you, I forgive you, I'm sorry. Yeah, and so I hear that, and that compassion, that self-compassion and self-awareness as leaders too, that we're human, that we're not perfect. No matter if we're leading our organization or we're leading our household, we are human, and we have moments of frustration, we have moments of depletion, and when we recognize that we're in that space, we're able to take a step back and correct it. So Jeanette just asked, what is Ponopono? Rebecca, I feel like you would be a great person to speak to that answer to that. I'm familiar with it, of course, but I got a feeling you could probably share more. Do you want to address?
Well, briefly, and thank you for bringing that back up, because it was something I used to do very ceremonially all the time. Essentially, it is, I see you, I forgive you, I hope you forgive me, I love you, be at peace. And I'm not saying all the words in order or correct, but it is basically extending that not only to yourself, but everyone in the world deserves that kind of compassion, that we're all on this journey together and we're struggling. And if we support each other through the hard times, then we all are stronger.
Yeah.
I'll tag everyone the actual words of that afterwards.
It's actually a form of radical forgiveness, and that the phrase Ho'oponopono is meant to be repeated over and over until the feeling, the emotion beneath it starts to lessen and you let it go. And so I know that's a bit of a sidebar, but we are talking about boosting immunity, and we do know that forgiveness is a really great way of boosting our immunity. So I'm so glad that came up. And Danny, thank you for giving us our leadership as medicine. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or say before we move on to speak with Rebecca about mind, body, and spirit boosting immunity?
Well, just to kind of wrap it up and tie it back into that immunity piece. As leaders, we can help people set an example for how to be rather than just what to do in this time. We have to recognize that it's going to take a lot of creativity, and to be creative, and I don't mean creative in arts and crafts. I mean, in creative expression. I mean, in creative thinking. Nobody has the answers. Therefore, we have to be creative in how we approach a new situation. As leaders, leaders can set the tone for what that looks like, and therefore help people reduce stress in their life, because that's a huge factor in immunity. So leaders can help people reduce stress and therefore fight off the coronavirus. It's a direct relationship between how leaders are and people's ability to fight off a virus.
Yeah, not to get political, but look at our leaders and how we're leaning on them right now to give us direction. We're all a microcosm in our own circles of the macrocosm of what's happening out here. So yeah, yeah. And thank you, Rebecca. She's put it in the chat for anyone who's interested in the whole Ho'oponopono. It's I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, and thank you. And yes, so Danny, thank you for that. Anne-Marie, you want to weigh in?
I just wanted to piggyback on what Danny was saying just for a second, in that it just brings up for me the idea of also a leader being able to set the tone in terms of adapting, because that's what a big part of resilience is being able to adapt to ever-changing circumstances. And so I think, leaders, whether that is an actual leader, like Danny said, or a parent, or however you're, or you're, just stepping up into your role as leader, is your ability to adapt and setting the tone in how you adapt and allowing people to understand it's okay to make changes and to tweak as we go along, as we get better. And as more information becomes available and clearer, to set the tone of adapting, which is great. That's what that brought up for me, what Danny was saying as well.
That flexibility, that, not being so stuck in this is the way we do things. Hey guys, guess what? We're doing things differently right now, whether you like it or not. So, how are you going to show up during this time? Yes. So I neglected to have us do our introductions in the beginning. So Danny, before you go off, can you just tell us a bit about you and where we can find you and how you work with your clients?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so my company's called Full Frame Coaching. You can go to fullframecoaching.com. I work with clients one-on-one on that adaptability and creativity point of view. And again, creativity is not, from this perspective, it's not about an aesthetic thing. It's about being as connected with our brain as possible. As humans, the best thing that we do, which differentiates us from the rest of the animals, is to think creatively, is to be conscientious. And that allows us to be adaptable. That allows us to make decisions well. It allows us to do what we want to do in our life and show up in the way we want to. And that's what I help people do in the coaching process.
Yes, full frame coaching. I love that. Snaps. Great. All right, Rebecca, our mind, body, and spirit goddess. Rebecca, so let's just open up just with a couple words about you before we get into the questions, since we didn't get those introductions in. So I know you've got a lot of your friends on the line, but can you just tell us a bit about you to start?
Yes, I am a coach. I'm a wellness coach, a positive psychology-based practitioner who also writes curriculum and programs for children and adults to help parents embrace their children in a whole different way, in a loving, nurturing way, and learn techniques, as well as help children connect to nature, movement, and the wonder in their hearts through different processes of social emotional learning. And I'm also an energy worker, so I do energy work near and far. And so those are just a few of the sustainable practices for living that I offer. And they can reach me through my website, rebecca-reynolds.com.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I relate to you in so much of that. And I just remember when I was starting out looking at how beautiful your work is with the kids that you work with and how passionate you are about what you do. And so when I talk a bit later about purpose and career, I'm going to reference you because I see that that's a part of how you keep your energy going and stay motivated out of the love that you have for what you do. So I was watching the governor. I live in the New Jersey, New York area, and the governor, or the mayor, I'm sorry, was on, and he was doing his recap of kind of what's going on. And he mentioned that 3 out of 4 people are saying that their sleep is affected by COVID and this quarantine. 3 out of 4 blew my mind. That's major. That's like 75% of us are walking around with these sleep issues. And we know that sleep is such an important part of immunity. So will you tell us just a bit about that, about our sleep and how it affects our immunity?
Sure. And you're so right, Amber. Right now, we're all walking around in what some would call social jet lag. We're exhausted, almost as if we took a plane from here all the way to Japan or further. And if we did that, many people would have jet lag. They would have this sense of, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, disorientation, exhaustion. And a lot of that is about how your organs function. Your organs, your hormones, every cell of your body, trillions of clocks going on right now in your body that are triggered by 2 major things, light and dark, the light cycle, and also food. And so that is called not only your biological clock, but your circadian rhythm. And a circadian rhythm actually has to do with living in embodiment with nature. And the bugs, all the plant life, all the species, most of them are connected also to circadian rhythm and have their own clocks going on. So that's why around this time of year, you'll notice the birds are saying at like 5 a.m., hey, the sun's about to rise, the sun's about to rise. And I know a lot of you follow my Instagram and know that I'm always taking pictures of the sunrise. You could hear the birds come in. So this is about working with your own natural biological clock, but we have gotten off of that. And some of that is due to the electricity, that now that we have electricity, and since we've had electricity in our homes, we flip on the lights and the color of the light matters. So for instance, let me start first with the morning light is usually an orange and red kind of yellow feel to it. And that engages with your hormones. I'm sorry, yeah, that's the evening light, my apologies. That engages with your hormones to say, it's almost time to go to bed. The sun is setting. And when we turn on lights, artificial lights in our home, we are triggering a whole different understanding. We're saying, hey, no, time to get up, go do your work. And if you're sitting in front of a computer, you're sitting in essentially what is blue light. And that's why some people do have blue light filters, which is a good idea. But really the good idea is to turn off your computers and all devices, including that big screen TV hanging on some people's mantle, and go into a state of just peacefulness, turn off lights, put in candles, and start relaxing your body. That would be working with circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is a biological clock that triggers every single organ in your body to also cleanse. So that let's take a shift worker, okay? A shift worker, which like 20% of our population are shift workers. That includes police, fire department, nursing staff, cleanup teams, the list goes on, 20 to 25%. They all suffer from circadian rhythm issues, often because they cannot regulate their bodies to what is a natural light and dark cycle. And so some of them are becoming prone to illness due to that.
How do you know when your rhythm is off, or how do you know when you're being affected?
So you may know because you're exhausted all the time, or you may have weight gain that you can't figure out why you're putting on weight. Hair loss might be an issue, or sight may also. And keep in mind that if we are working against a natural cycle that is our whole entire planet, but is also within us, we're being counterproductive for our health. And research is showing that over 100 documented illnesses are related right now to the circadian rhythm imbalance. So that's just what they have studied. 100, I'm thinking it's far more than that. So if we can, I'd like to talk about, how those trillions of alarm clocks go off. They're all set at different times. You are essentially a different person at every moment of the day, depending on which cycle of your body is being renewed. That's why we're also out there. But there are certain times of the day where you can have dental work and have less pain. And you can look this up. It's really super interesting to see, maybe I'll only get dental work from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and I'll have less pain. So
this is fascinating, Rebecca. When you learned about this, what did you do? What did you change in your behavior once you learned the importance of circadian rhythm and our immunity and our overall health?
Yes. Well, I changed everything. Very much for those of you who have children or even have a pet, very much if you have children, you are training that child to be in a pattern. We know that as parents that when we put our children to bed at the same time, they do better. When we let them take naps at the same time, they do better. And when we say, oh, I really want to go out, and we drag them 2 hours past their bedtime, we get the repercussions of that. Many of us have seen full-blown tantrums. Our pets will do that too. So here's some tips. First of all, establish a bedtime for yourself. Just know that it's best to go to bed before 11 p.m., even better if you can do between 9:30 and 10. 2 hours before that, start turning off the electronics. We did this, folks, in the 70s and 80s. We can do it now. Also, begin to dim the lights. If you can't go to all candles, begin to dim the lights and not rely on as much artificial light. Maybe even take one more lap outside and take a walk. Do some processes that tell your body it's time to go to bed. One I like a lot is an Epsom salt bath. Epsom salt is magnesium rich. It helps create that fluidity in your body, so it helps relax your muscles. And if you put a little lavender in, that's another sensory trigger. So that is a way also. If you can please make sure your room is 100% dark. Nowadays, you even have lights on the light switch. And so we have to find ways to turn all those lights off, to have light screened curtains in our room. And I always put on like an essential oil diffuser, and some people need a sound machine if they live in apartments or where there's a lot of chaos outside, like trains. So what we're trying to do is create that little incubator for us to be cozy and sound asleep. You can take melatonin, but your body will produce its own melatonin once you get in sync with your circadian rhythm.
So I hear a lot of what you're saying, even when you say in sync, and it brings up mindfulness for me. And I know that mindfulness is one of the topics that you go deep on. So let's talk a bit about mindfulness for a bit, and how practicing mindfulness can also help us in this effort of boosting our immunity and lowering our stress and making it through these challenging times.
Thank you, Amber. So mindfulness, obviously mindfulness and resiliency are two of my favorite topics. And mindfulness is being in the present moment with intention. And so it is just being aware. I'd like to take one little step back and say, just as important as setting the guidelines and a process for sleep, waking is also a process. So not waking before the sun starts to rise. And when you do wake, go outside, take in the sunrise with that blue light that just increases your good feeling and energy hormones. And so mindfulness practices for me start in the morning. It is as simple as taking a walk, as going by the water. I do live close to the water and I'm very lucky, but it's also being very intentional, noticing my breath. Am I fully using my breath? Am I aware of the triggers that things are not right within my body? The chemical triggers, even when I feel tired or when I need to rest, am I honoring that? We all have to listen to that. So I feel breath work, yoga, meditation, but honestly, to me, mindfulness is every movement. It doesn't mean I am always mindful. It means that when all is well, I am moving with respect to, if I'm cutting food, I'm honoring that food and I'm taking it in and really being respectful and grateful for every breath and every movement of my day.
You did a video on, I didn't see it, but actually Anne-Marie and Danny were talking about it in our call yesterday, and it was about savoring. Can you just give us just a quick minute on that and the importance of why you shared that?
Years ago, I did a program with a good friend, and it was about food on mood. It was how food can change your mood. And again, it brought in all the senses: sight, sound, smell, touch. It was all there. And at the end of that program, a young man, about 19 years old, said to me, "Rebecca, can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Did you pray while you were making this food?" And I said, and it almost makes me cry when I think about this, I said, "I did. I was thanking every bit of it for being there for us, for allowing me to use this to help others." And he said, "I felt that." So I feel that we put into everything we do an energetic field that people notice and they can also absorb. So we always need to be mindful of what we are energetically putting out there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
Anne Marie, I know that that really touched, sat with you, the video. Is there something that you wanted to say in regards to that?
It did. I just thought it, first of all, I just thought it was so beautiful. I think so often we are so busy and so wrapped up in everything that's going around that we forget to take the time to be mindful of the things that we have. So it kind of plays into gratitude for sure. Because you mentioned that you create this one meal and then you savor it for the rest of the day, which I thought was beautiful. But also that you think about the journey of the different components of the meal and how it came to be on your plate and sustaining you. And what a beautiful thing. So often, we're just kind of like, eating on the go, we're doing other things, and we're not really paying attention to what we're taking in. And that has to affect you energetically. But that video was so short and so beautiful a reflection of just taking that time to have gratitude and to savor what is coming in. It reminded me of that exercise when we were all studying positive psychology. We were given an exercise where we were given a grape and then a raisin, and we were given, it was actually a modified version of it. It wasn't even as hard as it is usually, where we had 3 minutes to eat the grape. 3 minutes. Now, usually we would just pop the grape, it would be done, we'd be on to the next thing. And we had to take 3 full minutes to eat the grape. And it was incredible. It seemed ridiculous in the beginning, but as you're doing it, you just experience it on such a different level. And it was just the feel of it and the taste of it and the smell and the just being with it. It kind of brings you right into the present moment and what's going on. And it takes you out of the past and the future, and it just brings you.
That's such a part of the beauty of what, if we were to look at the brighter side of what's happening right now, we can be more in the present moment. We don't have places to go. We don't have people to get out and go and see. And so if we cannot slow ourselves down now and be more mindful, then how can we ever expect to do so when we can go outside again? So this is definitely that time to, hey guys, if you want, practice and spend 3 minutes eating a grape. It's good practice for you.
Right.
It works.
So,
That's so true.
Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your tips with us. If we're complete there, we're going to move on to Anne Marie.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So Anne Marie is our, we love to cite you as this, but we don't want to ever pigeonhole you because you are so much greatness. You are our organizational expert. However, you do such a great job at talking about how organization fits into the overall essence of our well-being or the overall experience of our well-being. So I wanted to invite you to first tell us a bit about yourself and what you do, and then open just within that space of how organization fits into your well-being.
Well, thank you. I'm very fortunate because I get to bring positive psychology into a lot of the work I do, primarily into my work as a professional organizer. I am the co-owner, along with Marie Limpert, of Organize Me of New York. And so that is our organization company, or we're professional organizers who go into people's homes and offices and help them implement organizing strategies and solutions for their basic needs. And we help with paper management, time management, and decluttering and things like that. But I'm also a positive psychology-based life coach and resilience trainer. In my work as a life coach, I do a lot of work with helping clients to align their lives and their careers with their authentic selves, what their values and their strengths, and helping them develop that self-awareness to help them move forward from where they are to where they want to be. In the lens of our collaboration, I keep my focus to organizing, which I truly believe is a part of wellness. And I feel that it supports so much of what all of you are talking about. From the standpoint of wellness and boosting immunity, obviously, we want to do everything we can to be as healthy and as fit as possible in terms of our body, physically fit, in terms of our mind, our mental and emotional strength, and the organizing systems and strategies can support that. So I know we're going to get to talking about that, about, the video I did happen to talk about how can you set up your pantry or your refrigerator to support the goal of healthy eating. But it could also translate into what, Danny and Rebecca were talking about, the importance of sleep. So from that standpoint, Marie and I would help somebody set up their, if you want to kind of develop that climate of telling your body it's time to go to sleep and be calm and in a state of rest. If you are dealing with a massive amount of clutter, or if you're in a situation where you have all your bills and your paperwork, everything that's representing stress in your bedroom, which some people can't help. They don't always have the luxury of having an office, and sometimes your room has to pull up double duty. How can the organizing be set up in a way that it can at least be put away or out of sight, or managed in a way that you can still achieve that feeling of your bedroom as your sanctuary, so it can support sleep? In terms of a fitness routine, like when I wanted to establish better fitness routine for myself, which is a big priority for me, I, set up my space. I organized it to make it as easy as possible for me to get my butt down to my area where I work out and to do my workouts every day. So there are so many different ways that you can create your space and set up your drawers, your closets, your shelves, to make it as easy as possible to get what you need and to manage your energy. Because when people don't know what they have and where to find it, or if they're spending excess money on stuff that they already own, that's all very stressful. And that plays in a lot to what Danny was saying about the effects of stress. Mm-hmm. And when people are organized, it's, again, like I said before, they're not immune to tragedy. They're not immune to a global pandemic. They're not immune to the unexpected. But they can get their plan B very quickly in place. And they can address things and they bounce back faster and quicker. So again, organization as support for the way you want to show up in the world, which is confident and okay, I'm resilient. This is happening. I take it in. I have my emotions about it. And now I can take action, because I know all the stuff we can't control is what it is. But there's a lot of stuff we can control, and we can gain personal mastery over our space and our belongings.
That's so key. That's so key. There's a quote that says, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And so I just hear you saying so much of that in what you just highlighted. And so at the foundation of our organization, and at the foundation of actually everything that we're talking about, is behavior change. And you have this philosophy on behavior change. You just started to touch on it a bit before, but you say it so well. So do you know what I'm talking about? You say,
yes. Yes.
Can you share that with us, please?
About making it easy, make as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you just said, I will go one further too. It's a change in mindset and behavior. Organization is, I always say this, not about how neat and tidy something looks. You know what I mean? It's the mindset and the behavior that supports how you want to show up in the world. So behavior change and a willingness, a mindset change, a willingness to say, okay, I can get better at this, and I'm going to make a commitment now to change some of the behaviors that maybe aren't supporting me. And we always say, when you're establishing new behaviors, you want to do two things, and I did touch upon this in the video. You want to make it as easy as possible to do it, and to give yourself as few excuses as possible not to do it. They're slightly different.
I mean, just that is, say it again, as easy as possible to do it. And
you want to give yourself as few excuses as possible not to do it.
That is just such a simple way of having a huge shift in our behavior. I think that that's just so genius, right? I mean,
right.
Gosh, yeah. And so okay, so let's get into, you share so many great tips in your video. So if for anyone who missed it, I encourage you to go back to our page and watch it. But can we get you to give a recap there of what those tips were? And this applies to that. This, you're talking about how to make it easy so that you can build this nutrition into your lifestyle and to organize for nutrition. So take it away.
So I've been hearing so much about, I have a lot of family and friends, and I'm just seeing it a lot on, I don't know if you all are seeing it on social media about people who are just, they cannot believe what they're eating. They're eating all day long. They're eating at times that they're munching on stuff that they would never usually have in the house. They're binge watching TV shows. And so they're eating, and they're feeling kind of disgusting. That's what people are kind of expressing. They're just feeling this like self-loathing, which of course is not going to do anything to boost immunity, and a lot of it, I think, came because when this first started, this pandemic, we really didn't realize how long we were going to be in it. So in the beginning, it's like that fight or flight response, and all right, let's just grab everything we can grab. We all went to the Costco and we bought all these different things, and some of them maybe wouldn't have been stuff we would have normally had in the house all the time. And we were also just trying to get used to our new, I hate the phrase, but the new normal, the new routine, just to kind of survive. But now that we have a couple more weeks ahead of us, we can be more intentional about the choices that we make and how we kind of run things. And that's that adaptability that I was talking about that is so important for resilience. So in thinking, okay, I don't really like how things have been going and what I've been eating, and I want to be healthier, I gave 3 tips that can support eating healthier, whether it's in quarantine or beyond. And the first one was, again, in establishing new habits, you want to make it as easy as possible to do what you're trying to do. So in terms of eating healthier, you want to make it as easy as possible to see and access healthy foods. So I was saying, like in your refrigerator, put fresh fruits and vegetables right in front of you, eye level if possible, but right accessible. So like when you open that refrigerator, it's the first thing you see. And I use the example of, and it's a personal example for me, of not everybody should use their crisper drawer because, and I said it and I mean it, I said it and it's kind of funny, but it really is true. The crisper drawer for me is where things go to die. If it winds up in the crisper drawer, it is as if it does not exist anymore. It goes into
out of sight, out of mind.
I'm telling you, and I'm an organizer and I know where my stuff is, and it's still for some reason, and I don't even need to establish the new behavior anymore. It's more established for me, and that's still the case for me. So especially if you're new to healthy eating, you want to be, because what if you open the refrigerator and then you get a phone call, you get distracted? You know what I mean? Like it just takes a moment to get distracted. Make it easy to get what you want. Put it at eye level. If it's in a drawer, make it sure it's like open in a drawer, because just the added step can be the thing that makes you not do it. Don't give yourself an excuse not to do it.
Yeah.
My second tip was to, like on shelves, if you have shelving, you can create like an open drawer on a shelf using a bin, which I happen to just grab just in case people didn't see it. You can use a shoebox though for this, but the idea is just, I take snacks out of the box. So like granola bars or whatever, whatever you're looking to do. And this could be in the refrigerator as well. If you like Greek yogurt, whatever types of things that you like to corral, put like things together. And then you're grabbing, pulling it out, you're taking what you want, you can rummage without destroying everything, and you push it back in. And then things are not getting lost in the back. Again, you're not, and that's another way to manage your space and your inventory, as we like to call it. Nothing's going to rot in the back because things are just shoved in. This allows you to control it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And even though it's clear, we suggest putting a label on it because it takes that think work out and it makes it so super easy, even if you're rushed, to just grab and go. And I use that term, not so literally, because I realize we're in quarantine. Where are we going? But the truth is you're going somewhere, whether it's into the other room, whether it's back to your office to work, whatever you're doing, you want to be grabbing something that's healthy. So that was tip number 2. And then tip number 3 was to do prep work in advance. And people talk about food prep all the time, but they don't think of it maybe in terms of quarantine because we're home. But if you take time on one day to maybe prep some snack baggies that are proportioned, again, that takes the think work out of it. You're not, am I overeating? No, because you already did that work very intentionally on one day, and then you're set up for the other 6 days. And then you can take those snack baggies and you can put them in something like this, again, making it easily accessible. So they're very, very general tips that you can start using. I mean, today you can start doing it, and you don't need fancy products for it. You can just use a shoebox to kind of, and then obviously putting things at eye level where possible. And if there are things you want to control, I mean, are you a parent with several children running around, and because you're working from home also, you can't always keep, you have eyes in the back of your head. All parents do, but sometimes you can't have that many eyes looking at people.
Yeah.
Try to put those things that you want to control up high, or really down low, or not as accessible. Whether you're monitoring somebody else or you're monitoring yourself, again, if you surround yourself with the stuff you do want, people tend to grab what's close.
Yeah.
And if you want to control it, then obviously for the kids, you are in control, and then they have to come to you in order to get it. So that gives you, again, a degree of control back, which keeps your stress level a little bit lower. Everybody's eating healthier. So what does that do? It supports not only the immune system, but it helps us to not get as depleted. So those are ways that you can do it. And in terms of not giving yourself an excuse, Danny brought up something that he remembered that I had said a long time ago. When I was establishing my routine for working out, it was during a time, I don't have to do this now, but at the time, I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning to work out. This is when my daughter was little. I'm not a 5:30 in the morning, get up and go kind of person. And so I had to make it as easy as possible and not give myself an excuse. It was winter time and it was freezing. So that alone could have made me not get out of bed, and I would have not been supporting that goal. I used to sleep in my workout clothes. I didn't even just place them in advance and have them ready. I used to sleep.
No excuse to that. Yeah, you got. I do the same thing. You'll see my workout pants are on under the sweater, so you'll see that. Anne-Marie, I love that you speak about this with so much passion, and I appreciate all of the tips that you shared, and encourage everyone to go to our resilience page. If one of us can tap it, we'll type it into the chat. But where you can watch the videos and get more of tips from all of us. So your passion actually leads me into my little bit that I was going to give on purpose and how our purpose can be healing. When I hear you speak, Anne-Marie and Rebecca and Danny, I hear so much passion in what you do. And I was reading some statistics about how purpose-driven people are getting through this time with more ease than some of the rest of us, where our purpose is able to give us direction in our days and motivation to get through them, where we're not as focused on all of the negativity around us. And so there are people that, and if you're on the call, we hold a space for you and care and love and compassion for you. There are people who are losing their jobs right now. There are people who are not getting paychecks right now. We are being afforded such an opportunity to take a step back and press reset. On our behaviors, on what we're doing for a living, and what we're doing for a living, if it's not helping us to live more and live fuller, then this is a time to really reconsider that. Have we thought about what our purpose is? Have we thought about the why behind what we do for, usually it's even more than a third of our lives. I mean, we spend 8 to 9, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day working, 5 to 6 to 7 days a week. We spend so much of our time working that if we're not doing what we love for a living, then I'm going to ask the question, but then I'm going to make a statement. Then how is that affecting us? Well, it is affecting us. It's affecting us by us being stressed if we're just going to a job to work for the money, by us being unfulfilled if we're just working for the money. And that's showing up, that stress that shows up, or that, I had a client that was telling me, she's in real estate now, but she was telling me that she would go to work in the morning and she would cry about going into her job every day. And she would call her mother or a friend of hers, and she would cry about going into work every day. And now she is in real estate. She left that job. She was finally motivated to get out of it. Now she's in real estate and she loves what she's doing. And she's been afforded this time to actually work on building her business. Imagine, had she not left her job, during this time, and now she's being forced to show up and to continue to do what she hated doing, on top of the stress and the lack of control of what's going on in the rest of our lives. Ultimately, we have the control to be within our lives to decide what we do with our career. And if we are brave enough, courageous enough to walk in our purpose, then we can be healed for a lifetime from the stress that we would have from doing something we don't love doing. And it's not that the stress goes away, because all of us are very passionate about what we do, but we're all stressed too at times, right? Right? We still have it, but we have that. There's a quote by that I spoke about in my video of he who has a why can get through almost any how. We have that why to get us through that how. And so just today, my biggest takeaway from you, if you are not already working within your purpose, would be to find ways of really leaning into your purpose, finding meaning in what you do. And even if that just means volunteering, even if that's not what you can do right now in your job, just take steps in that direction and look at the joy that it brings you. So we have a comment here, and I wanted to also just open up for questions in the chat, and also from us as the panelists. We only have a couple more minutes, but with your permission, we'll go over to 1:35. If you have to hop off, we understand, but we'll take just a few minutes to address questions before we close out. So, oh, this is Anne Marie. So Anne Marie, actually, I'll have you address that. You said, oh, oh no, I'm sorry. That is a question to us. Just kidding. Okay, so you guys had some questions for me, Danny and Anne Marie. So I'm gonna pass the mic to you and try to answer them quickly so we can hop off in the next few minutes.
Well, I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about what can people do who are in a situation where maybe they have purpose in their job normally, but because of the current situation, that opportunity has been, taken away, or it's not available, or something like that. What can they do to increase purpose in this moment?
Well, a couple of things. So it depends on if they want to accept where they are, if they want to transition. So first, bringing clarity around that. What do you want for yourself? Do you want to appreciate more of where you are, or do you want to move forward? So sometimes we just need to have more appreciation for where we are. And what that looks like is gratitude. So coming up with a gratitude page and writing out everything that we're grateful about in our job. Now, if you don't have much to write, or if that list is like really, really short, then you may want to consider pivoting. This is a time, I actually started my business. I did a big pivot in the 2008 recession, and I started the business that I did for 12 years that I just did before, 11, 12 years before this new business that I've been in for the last 3 years. But I used that opportunity. I said, okay, everything's falling apart. So I don't feel so bad if I don't have it all together right now. This is a time where I can just say, okay, well, everything's kind of up in the air. So let me just start this new business. It could have been a little kooky, but luckily, thankfully, I was financially prepared for it. But so, clarifying that it's time to move forward because I don't appreciate this space, then we have to get into the space of conquering and committing. So conquering what it is that, one, within ourselves, where are our strengths? What do we want to be doing? What's our vision for our life? How do we want to wake up and spend our days? Who do we want to speak to? Who do we want to serve? Clarifying who those are, and then conquering any limitations and getting over that. And that looks like research. So now doing research online, Googling, okay, I'm good at this. What skills, if I'm creative, what are good professions for creatives? Google has a lot of answers if you don't actually seek a coach, which I would recommend. And I do a lot of, so speaking about myself, I do a lot of work with people who are looking to transition within their careers and finding strength and purpose. But then that third step would be committing. And so committing that I am going to make a change and start walking in this direction of a more purpose-driven life, even if it looks like something on the side, even if it looks like volunteering just to get started. But I'm going to commit to walking in the direction of my purpose. And then the last thing that I didn't mention, so clarify, conquer, and commit, but then back to that gratitude, the gratitude and appreciation and savoring of how it makes you feel to have overcome that stuff that was holding you back and move forward.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, can you remind us all how that is connected to fighting off the virus in the immunity sense. I mean, we kind of understand it from the positive psychology perspective, but everybody may not have that direct connection. There's purpose, and then there's how purpose is actually making us stronger physically.
So actually, I think that's a great tie-in of all of our messages and how it ties back into immunity. It's the mindfulness, the decrease of stress. So the mindfulness and the honoring also. So the mindfulness of being aware of how things are affecting us. How is my job? How is the stress from my job affecting me? Oh God, I can't sleep. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm stressed out. I'm having headaches. My stomach is hurting. I'm off. I'm snappy. I'm irritable. I hate this. Life sucks. Okay, well, hey, there's your opportunity to make a change. Being mindful of this is the first step. The awareness around needing to make a change is the first step in making that change. And so then leading us into our courage to make the change. We've all talked about that behavior shift. There's a behavior shift in the way that we look at ourselves and leaders, in the way that we're handling our mind, body, and spirit, in the way that we're handling our organization, and in the way that we're handling our careers. And so, my comment was around volunteering if you can't do something. You know why? Because it makes you feel better. And when you feel better, there's a mind-body connection that we could do a whole years of study on. There's a mind-body connection, and when we feel better emotionally, we feel better physically as well. We're less stressed and we have less dis-ease, which equals less disease. And so this is how all of what we talked about today ties into our immunity. It's that mindfulness, the courage to make a change, and the attention that we put on doing so. And so we hope that we've offered you, it's 12:35 now, but we hope that we've offered you just advice, practical advice that really helps you in moving forward. I know this may not be exactly what you thought. Maybe you thought we'd talk about vitamins or something, and there's more from us that we would love to share from you. So we'll continue to reach out to you and send you some follow-up information on more tips and tools. But we hope that you found value in what we've brought to you today. And this is a labor of love for us. We really enjoy doing it, and we really enjoy helping you. That's our purpose. And so it helps us to get through these tough times. And so you guys are you're boosting our immunity and keeping us healthy too. So again, my name is Amber Lee Forrester. I am the Flow Coach on Instagram, and my company is Quartz Wellness. I don't think I told you guys where you could find me. My website is the Quartz Wellness Collective, and there's more information like this on my website, and we will share with you guys more information on us to follow. And if you are interested in us doing this again, let us know, and let us know what you want us to talk about. So talk back to us, send us your comments, send us your feedback. We appreciate it. And yeah, be resilient, be mindful, be happy, be positive, and be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.